Rehmannia Dean Thomas. I am so pleased to be able to welcome you to In the Nod.
Thank you so much, Harmanjot.
Yay! So for anybody for whom Rehmannia Dean Thomas is a new face and a new presence, he is the founder of Super Tonic Herbs. Has had multiple decades of experience with Chinese medicine. Founded multiple companies, multiple brands, and also had a traditional master pupil 8-year apprenticeship with Ron Teagarden, who many people do know here, at least here in Los Angeles, and is actually you're one of the most profound herbalists I've ever met. And with your permission, I'd actually like to start with a couple of stories about you. Do you mind?
Certainly not.
Okay. So how I came to invite you on the show today was actually you were pivotal to two experiences in my life in Los Angeles, which was one in 2008, my first month in LA. Mm-hmm. I had moved here alone. I didn't know anyone from anywhere. And I got invited to this experience in Marina del Rey, and it was like a puja. And again, I was not spiritual. I didn't know anything about anything. I'd never been to a puja before, and I was freaked out. Mm-hmm. Not by the puja itself, but just in general. I was just a total nervous system wreck. And
freaky California stuff.
Yeah, and I had anxiety. I had like known social anxiety. I knew this about myself, and it was all brought up. And I was really trying to stay cool and just with it, but I was a mess inside. And you had this stand at this event when it was still under a different brand name. Mm-hmm. And you were at the back, and I was just doing my best. I was white knuckling my anxiety. Mm-hmm. And so I go up to your stand and I just start talking to you, and you are just looking at me. And I don't think I told you anything about what I was experiencing, but you just said, you should try this reishi. It's really good for your third eye, and it's really balancing. And so
it's true.
You gave me a powder of your powdered reishi. I put it in my plastic Poland Springs bottle, and I took a sip. And I just got super calm.
I might actually remember that.
No way.
I think I do, because I remember someone put it in their plastic, their little cup thing.
Yeah.
Like with a little straw and stuff.
Yeah.
That's so funny. It comes to mind.
Wow. And I got super calm, and I became confident in a grounded way where I didn't go from anxiety to like, I'm confident. I went from anxiety to I'm secure. Yeah. I feel good about myself as a person. Yeah. I'm able to actually be in the world right now, which was so challenging for me. And I actually kept that like Poland Springs bottle like it was, my elixir of life. And I would add a little water to it. I would take it around while I was going about my world, my new life in Los Angeles, trying to find myself. Yeah. And it was a lifesaver. So cut to probably about 8 years later, 8 years after that, like a friend of mine, another like freaky deaky friend of mine, was like, this.
By then, 8 years later, you know some freaky deaky.
Right, some more freaky. Some like feng shui experts. And did you do? So she was like, hey man, this guy Ramani is going to be at Revolution. He's brilliant. We should go down there. He's doing free consultations. We should go down there and meet him. Mm-hmm. So I was like, all right. I lived in Santa Monica at this time. So I thought, okay, yeah, sure. I'll go do that. She never ended up showing up. It was just me. And I think maybe my husband was with, I mean, we were a couple, but I don't know if he came with me to Revolution that night. Mm-hmm. And I don't even think you took my pulse. I was just sitting at a table next to you, listening to you talk to people, and you were talking about this blood builder. You had a big reishi mushroom. You were talking about this blood builder. You're like, this could make a vegetarian nation. It's this powerful of a blood builder.
And you've tapped into two what I think are my most vital, issues that I wanted to help with. Spiritual opening, anti-stress, and yes, there are herbs that the Chinese figured out over the years that can help us not become anemic through somehow assimilating plant iron into the blood.
So anyway, in that moment, I was like, when I got there, I remembered you from 8 years earlier at that puja. I was like, dude, this is the guy with the reishi mushrooms. And I was obsessed with your brand at the time because it was so powerful that I would just like look up every formula. I was like, this guy's got the goods. and then when we were thinking about guests to have on this podcast, I was like, Rehmannia Dean Thomas, he's amazing. So anyway, that's just like a big introduction about how incredible and how you've actually been a huge part of my life in these really small ways. And
that's beautiful. I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah. So really, really impactful. So so talk to me about spiritual opening and this blood building thing.
Thank you. I want to go with it right there since those were your two primary experiences, which are two of my main thrusts in my work. Yes, reishi mushroom. I discovered in 1998 when I met my teacher, Ron Teagarden. I became his apprentice for 8 years in a ancient Chinese tradition of herbology that predates current Chinese medicine. It was called classical Chinese medicine. And it was all about wellness and prevention. It wasn't about treatment of disease. The masters of my lineage felt that a treatment of disease, if somebody's sick, you're an inferior doctor, you let them get sick.
Wow.
You know? But the original classical Chinese medicine was like, how can I be climbing that mountain when I'm 100 years old? But they also wanted to seek wisdom and to understand the essence of life, the mystery of life, to pierce into it. And somewhere along the line, somebody discovered this mushroom that happens to grow very prolifically in the northern Manchurian province of China, where the herbs come from. This mushroom reishi grows prolifically there in these mountains. Well, people tried it. They think this could be up to 20,000 years ago.
Wow.
What the Chinese they call wild history. And now they have found, as a little insight here, they found tombs in China that are from 20,000 BC, and they found the charred remains of herbal formulations where they were making tea, of the very stuff that we're doing.
Yeah.
So you had a combination of 20,000 years of empirical observation and a lot of wisdom, but they primarily came to focus on spiritual health, not in itself, but as one of the three primary energies of life. And I'll get to all three of them, what those are. But reishi mushroom is the main herb that is said to liberate psychic obstructions. It's not psychotropic. It is not banned by anybody. It's not considered dangerous by anybody. Nobody, the FDA or anybody, says, "Oh, be careful with this." It's deemed incredibly safe. But it has a way of, literally, okay, I'm going to say something kind of California foo-foo here. It has a way of raising your frequency.
Oh, for sure. That's totally California foo-foo.
And when it does, it's like you're suddenly in a place where there's more reverence up there. The further you go up in your frequency, the more reverence for life there is, the more understanding and more interrelationship of all life is there. So suddenly on reishi mushroom, you start feeling like, I don't use the word on reishi. You can just take it once in a while, whatever you want. But you start feeling this ultimate connection to life, And look at what we need to do right now. Look at what humanity needs to do right now. Do we need to rekindle our connection with this planet and with other life?
Absolutely.
We've been in a very homocentric, anthropocentric mind frame for quite a while now. And it's time. The planet won't allow it much longer, so it's inevitable as part of evolution. The way evolution works, we're going to be called to enter into more of a interdependent, symbiotic, as a species with nature. I think that reishi is like the key. I really do. I really believe it. Yeah. It comes it comes to us as a kind of a cosmic key, and we weren't ready for it yet. Evolution doesn't. A baby isn't just born mature. It has to go through an immature phase. It's become a little teenager and bang things up and all that stuff, and then eventually attains wisdom. Well, any species is the same way. It has to go through an immature phase. The immature phase is usually marked by consumption. Mm-hmm. Well, we've been in that immature phase as a species on this earth because the consumption was everywhere. We didn't have to worry about anything. We just consume. Now that is challenged. So then the next stage of our evolution comes in, our intuition, our connection with how do we get back together with ourselves and with nature. And that's where I think that reishi is one of those keys.
That's what you said to me at that night at the puja. You said, take this reishi, it'll strengthen your intuition. And because I had just started Kundalini yoga, literally I'd been doing it for like a week, maybe more, maybe like a week and a half. And all they did was talk about intuition. I was like, oh, okay, I'll take some reishi mushroom, and it did. Yeah. I want to ask you about your formulations, because now reishi is like,
everybody knows.
It's famous, it's trending.
And other people on the internet are finally starting to talk about it as a spirit tonic.
Yeah.
Finally, yeah.
Okay, but I don't know that I've ever felt as like balanced up here on anybody else's formulations except for yours. Why is that?
Well, thank you. Some divine gifts and a lot of prayers and a lot of intentions that were pure, pure intentions. And
I guess your psyche, your intelligence, like, the quality of any product is as good as, well, maybe sometimes it's better than the psyche of the person who puts it together, but you definitely have a very high psyche. So
it is. It humbles me to think that, little old Dean that's my real name, from Kentucky, where I grew up. I was given this knowledge by this great master. Yeah. I was a personal apprentice for 8 years and learned this great thing. And sometimes I think, why me? But then I stop and go, no, I'm holding this, man. Yeah. I'm holding this, and I'm proud of it.
Yeah, for sure.
But regarding what you were saying about the quality and the efficacy, I've had the good fortune of having been that 8 years with Ron Teagarden. I met a lot of his contacts. Mm-hmm. His contacts were way up in the world of, essential, the top of the top.
Yeah.
And he was more of an aesthetic. He worked with Hollywood actors on quietly. People, could come in there on the sly, all the famous people and everything coming on the quiet. And he was happy with that. He was happy being kind of back in the works,
Yeah.
And then I was sort of the one that took it out on the street in a way. But I did meet a lot of his contacts. And then once I left him after 8 years, and neither he or I wanted me to go, but my life's been very destined, and I was told to go. Well, immediately people knew who I was, so they started coming to me saying, we've got this, we've got that, And then this was in 2000, it might have been around 2006, I guess. Mm-hmm. A guy approached me and he said, look, I'm with a company that has a powdered extract of reishi mushroom that is 10 to 1. I said, what's that mean? He goes, it means 10 to 1 pound, 10 pounds of the raw material extracted down to 1 pound of the powdered extract.
Wow.
Without any leftover material. It's just the pure essence of the mushroom. No cellulose left, no fillers. And I said, I said, let me taste it. And wow, man. I said, well, look, tell me why are you offering this to me? Why are you telling me about this pure? He goes, oh, so you can tell us how much maltodextrin you want in it. Ah! And I went, what if I don't want any? He goes, well, you can't make any money that way. And I go, really? And he goes, yeah, the general reishi supplement on the market is 100 capsules, and it's usually about 150 or 200 times, maltodextrin.
Yeah.
He said, that's the only way you can make money is the price value is $20. I said, no, just give it to me straight. Yeah. He said, okay. And so I bought like 10 kilos of it. And I went back to my place and figured, what am I going to do with this? This had to have been, yes, right. This was around 2006. And then I thought, I'm not going to put this in capsules. I'm going to have people drink this like they're drinking a tea, like a chai. Because I was already, at that time I was making those, I would give people whole herb formulas and they would go home and boil it and drink the tea.
Yes, I remember.
Right, that's what I was doing in those days.
Gorgeous.
So I wanted people to drink it. And once I realized, this just tastes great if you do it right. It has a really earthy, deep, beautiful.
It did taste good. It did.
Espresso sort of thing.
Yeah.
Not even as strong as espresso, really. Mm. And I was like, I'm just going to put this bulk in a jar. And I'm going to go to the Longevity Now conference, which they invited me to speak in 2000. This time it was 2009. I was already out there selling it like this. And I unveiled it through their organization, and it kind of like kicked in the hole. And next thing I knew, everybody's product suddenly went to 10 to 1.
Yeah.
But then it comes down again to like, what is the formulation? And there is where it takes at least, I would say probably 20 years of diligent, hands-on empirical work to know exactly the ratios of the herbs to use in order to make the sum of the part it more powerful than the sum of its parts.
Yeah.
So you would put in this much rhodiola to this much astragalus, and then they create something that's more powerful than their two parts. And this is where, like, I like saying this because people come to me and say, oh man, I've turned my whole kitchen into an apothecary. I have a astragalus, I have a jar of that, I have an astragalus, I have a Sazandra, and I'm like, great. But I'll see them a few years later, and I'm like, I'm not seeing any difference, because it's not really that. And that's what the great masters actually taught us. They said it's not just about just taking stuff. It's about understanding how to yes, for a master, to know, do the due diligence that's been done over now probably 20,000 years and been documented, and now well categorized and documented, to take the time, which I did. I spent 8 years with Ron Teagarden in silence, just listening, and then I never wanted to open my mouth until I knew what I was saying, And there is something that I understand, that the alchemy of my formulations it exceeds a lot of products that I've seen. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because what you're really talking about is not only did you study this classically from someone who, like you said, Ron is a really interesting sort of LA character because he had such a powerful business and brand. Everybody knew about him, and he was really that forefront of popularizing Chinese medicine in this city, which is a major broadcast center of America, the United States. But also very, intelligent being. So you did the classical study from the ancient Chinese ways. And at that same time, you're an individual who has calibrated their sensory system to know, this is going to give somebody an energetic upgrade, or this is going to actually work in this kind of way. I have both the science and the art. You have both the science and the art. And this is the difference between, I really believe in self-healing. And so I really believe that when you get sensitive enough, you'll know what to take and of how much. But when you're not calibrated to that level yet, that's when you go to somebody who is calibrated like yourself, who can actually put something together. And this is why there are formulas out there, which is just like, you put the thing together, but it doesn't measure up to when you had the whole herb formulas, or now with Super Tonic Herbs, the powdered formulas, which are amazing. Well, and then, yes, another part of the success of my formulas is that they are standing on a lot of history, as far as, like, we know this combination of these herbs works to produce this effect. Yeah. Now, what I did and what I attempted to do, and I guess I succeeded, is to take the ancient Chinese formulas and bring them a little more into the modern world. I believe in standing on top of a mountain and adding a little more dirt. Yeah. I don't believe in creating your own anthill over here. Totally. And so I climbed it. And now I carried a bucket of dirt up there to add, because that's my intention. Yeah. But absolutely, the formula. So there's a formula called, I call empath. It's based on a classical Chinese formula called healer's tea, right? I'll tell you a little bit about this. It gives some insight into. Yeah, because I actually saw it at the Conscious Life Expo that you were just at, and I was like, ooh, there was everything on that table. I was like, ooh. But tell me about empath. Okay, so empath is my advancement, I will say, of a classical formula called healer's tea. So what happened in China about 1,200 years ago, and the way they do everything is they make sure that they can monitor what they're doing. So they'll train 100,000 people in a certain way, and then they'll watch them all and see. They'll monitor them all to find out what worked and what didn't. Yeah, and you're saying, like, 20,000 years of proven efficacy versus some of the other stuff we got going on here, which is like not even 6 months of proven efficacy. I know. It's great. Great if somebody. It's wonderful if somebody discovers something that winds up changing humanity. Great, right? But we're already standing on this, and that's where I'm going. Yeah. But and so this formula was called healer's tea. The way it was created was about 1,200 years ago. They decided to introduce acupressure into the Chinese medical system. Okay. So what the Chinese medical authorities did was they trained 100,000 people to do acupressure.
and set them out in the provinces, in the clinics to do their work. And what happened was, in a fairly short time, large percentage of them started coming back saying they were getting burnt out through the work. Their lower back was feeling stress and strain, and they were getting worn out where they couldn't go to work. And they realized that when people are healing others, you are tapping into an energy that's associated with the solar plexus, which would be associated with the entire connection to the cosmos.
Absolutely.
Without going off on a tangent here, but and then if there's a healer who's, especially if they have their hands on someone or anything, teachers get really burnt out this way. Yeah. Even auto mechanics get totally run down by people. Oh, my car, I'm going on our vacation tomorrow. Can you stay late and fix it?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, I knew auto mechanics who had to close and sell their place because they just couldn't take it.
Wow.
Everything, all kinds of therapists, doctors, nurses,
caretakers, moms,
anyone who's empathic.
Yeah.
Who other people, and so these people come along and they want you to come down into the abyss in a sense that they're in there in this miserable place, and they want you to empathize with them down there.
Right.
Well, if we let ourselves go down there emotionally, that's when they start drawing this energy out. We associate it with the kidneys, solar plexus, and we call this yin. Yin is the energy we use. Yin is associated with water, with female energy. And they start to draw yin. It's just leaking our yin, and it can debilitate a person. So I knew about healer's tea. We had it at the Elixir Bar at Dragon Herbs when I was managing it in 2002. And when we first opened that bar up, I didn't know how to protect myself yet. I didn't know. So suddenly these homeless people were coming in. This one woman who I loved her. She was just so great. But man, she had just had a terrible life. And she would have to come in and tell me about it. And I'd get her back. We'd be getting her back, and then she'd disappear, and she'd come back in a month later all broken out and say, they threw her into the mental hospital, and she broke out and come back for more. And I was like going through this. And one day I went home, and I couldn't climb my stairs. I didn't know what was wrong with me, and my girlfriend at the time had to help me get up into my chair. And I was like, I went back to Ron the next day, and I said, sir, you got to take me off the Elixir Bar. He goes, what's wrong? I said, I'm getting burnt out. He goes, are you drinking your healer's tea? Yeah. And I was like, no. And he goes, get down there and have some healer's tea. I swear, I drank some of this stuff and went, whew. And I've never been burnt out. I was just at a conference where I saw you over the weekend. Yeah. I gave consults for over 300 people.
Yeah.
And I look sort of burnt right now, I admit. But I mean, I feel fine, Yeah. I couldn't have done that before.
Yeah.
So then what I did was I looked at the healer's tea formula, and I said, I want to modernize this. I want to also protect the healer's auric field.
Wow.
Yeah, so I put reishi in it, into the classical formula, which includes the string of the dendrobium pod of the dendrobium flowers, called the healer's herb, licorice root, goji, and schisandra. That's all that's in this formula. It's remarkably effective and so simple. And I said, I'll put reishi in it, and another herb called polygala, which is called the will strengthener, which allows you to put up walls to block psychic vampires. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm like, so I bought some stuff from you because I was like, yes. And I didn't get the empath tea. So now I really want it. But I'm curious about like taking multiple formulas at once.
You can. Really, honestly, we work in a class of the original Chinese herbology, today called classical Chinese medicine, was all focused on the superior class of herbs called the tonic herbs. They didn't have sickness yet way back then, I don't think. And so they weren't worried about it. It was not until about 1500 BC that a book was written called The Yellow Emperor's Classic of Internal Medicine, which brought medicinal herbs in. By that time, you had the empires and the dynasties, and so you started having people who were crammed up in cities, and they were starting to get sick. Prior to that, though, it was just, so they focused on what we focus on now, and that's one reason why Ron Teagarden loved me so much, because I wasn't what he called polluted by a lot of TCM stuff, just busyness, and we could just get right to the root of it, which is about tonification of the body rather than treatment. We consider that superior. Well, because of the tonic herbs, there's only really about 40 or 50 tonic herbs. And there are some in India, too. Shilajit is a total tonic herb. Yeah. Ashwagandha, shatavari. But these are very, very rare, or the criteria for a plant, a part of a plant to be to be brought into the Chinese materia medica, and the Russian and the Indian materia medicas are very similar, and the Korean and the Japanese, to be brought in and hold its place over thousands of years as a tonic herb means it's completely safe under any circumstance.
Okay.
So if you were to take my empath formula and have it along with my 3 masters formula, which is Reishi, Shilajit, and Ormus, you're only tonifying. You're not going to cause a cross communication.
Yeah, so if I take the Rakata or the
Rakta.
Yeah.
Rakta is a formula for nourishing our blood.
Yeah.
I'm primarily a vegetarian. I choose it.
Yeah.
There might be once or twice a year I might eat some little meat item.
Yeah.
But I want us to move toward in time more vegetarian diets,
Yeah.
But I don't pick on people when they're not there yet.
Yeah.
Like I don't go,
Yeah.
I don't do that,
Yeah.
Like not at all, because a lot of young women can get anemic if they're not eating meat.
Right.
And so what I did then was I created a formula. My formula, my whole company was called Women's Complete. Mm-hmm. Now it's called Essentia. Same formula pretty much. Mm-hmm. And it has a famous herb called dong guai. Mm-hmm. This is a really beautiful herb to look up. And the Chinese never ate meat, red meat, in their history. They didn't eat it because they thought the cow was a sacred animal, and the deer, they wouldn't eat it. And so they had to be concerned about their women getting anemic. Mm-hmm. And not only that, but they had billions of people in their population, all these like 5,000 years.
Yeah.
So they had to make sure their population was taken care of. And they found herbs that tonify the blood. The way that dong guai works, we still don't know exactly how it works, but it appears to assist the blood in assimilating iron ions into the red blood. Okay. And you see, here's the problem, is that vegetable plants, that's where the original iron is in the grass that the cow eats. Right. But it's called ferric iron. It's a heavier ion. It's too heavy for us to assimilate into our blood. Well, the cow goes and eats the grass. It has 2 weeks of digestion and 6 stomachs. Mm-hmm. And during that time, it renders that into what we simply refer to as heme iron or ferrous iron. Yeah. That iron is very easy for us to take up into our blood. So my theory is that when we became adept at hunting, humans developed tools for weapons for hunting. Yeah. We started eating more meat than we needed to because animals were everywhere. Right. And we started eating a lot more meat than we really needed. And I think our enzymes that we would have normally have used way back in the hunter-gatherer days when we ate lots of sticks and fruit and rocks, and people thought it's thought that people could eat really roughage stuff and digest it back then. Mm-hmm. Well, we would have had digestive enzymes that could possibly have rendered iron out of the plants, but since we were eating all that meat, our body just shut that off to save metabolic energy, and now it's just a genetic thing. Mm-hmm. But we can get that back. If it was ever in our genetics to begin with, it's a matter of, nourishing it back. And that comes from mitigating the meat in your diet and taking this herb dong guai in a formula like, ideally, like Essentia, so that it's balanced. There's another herb called Ligusticum that's the same thing as a blood tonic. And then my namesake herb, Rehmannia, is a blood fortifying tonic as well. Yeah. They're all there. And we can, if some of us are choosing, now say you got a young woman who, I don't want to eat meat, but I feel like I've just got to once in a while. Yeah. It's not the protein, it's the iron. Her body is getting iron deficient. She's getting anemic, and her body is telling her to go eat some meat to get the iron. That's what. So first of all, I just want to clarify. So there's no contraindications. Like you can take this blood builder, and you could take the empath tea. You can sort of take things at the same time. You're not gonna because they're going to different places. Okay. Our body's made of a lot of different components. Yeah. And in the end, I jokingly say the tonic herbal, scenario is kind of like a big salad bar. Okay, great. You could you go to a salad bar, you want everything, fabulous, right? Yeah. And then that is sort of like, it's just very interesting. So that is kind of what happened to me. I actually naturally trend towards vegetarianism. It was never a conscious choice. At one point it was a conscious choice, but for a long time it wasn't. It was just naturally part of my being. But if I don't, what I've noticed since birthing and feeding for my own body 2 children, that
without meat now, I do get totally depleted. And I thought it was the protein. And what you're telling me now is not the protein. It's the iron. Yeah. We don't uptake, because the plant iron is heavier, we don't uptake it as easily. Yeah. And so it's a faster assimilation from animals, but you can, with some of these herbs, you actually can do it.
The conclusive evidence is still not on the table about how. When I was in Macau, and last time I was there in China, I went down to Macau in 2007. I happened to go to a medical university. We walked in a room, and there were about 100 fish tanks with all of these little minnows in the fish tanks, the same fish. I said, "What are you guys doing here?" They said, "We are giving them all dong guai to see how they build blood." You know, they were giving them different ratios of dong guai to register how much they were building their blood. Because in this little fish, you could see its red blood in there.
Oh, wow.
You could easily see how much. So they would give this one this much dong guai, and this one this much, and this tank that much, this tank that much, and see like how red inside the fish was getting with blood, you know. And they're still working on this kind of thing.
So, and then, I had another question. I just totally lost it. Shoot. Well, you had said that, okay, so we're blood building. This is important to you. Well, maybe we'll just go there. I'll find the other question. But tell me, because you had said sort of the wisdom, the spiritual side, and also the blood building. These are, this was it. You said that Chinese medicine wasn't really into eating meat, but as far as I know, as a lot of times people will do Kundalini yoga, which classically is a vegetarian practice. Again, it's your own, choose your own adventure, do what you want. It's we're post-dogma here.
Yeah.
They'll do Kundalini yoga, maybe they'll practice dogmatically, and then they'll go see their Chinese medicine doctor, and their Chinese medicine doctor says, I have to eat meat. Yeah. So where's the confusion there?
Okay, the current TCM, Chinese medicine, they understand this. They believe that if you don't eat meat, you can get anemic. Women, particularly women in reproductive years.
Okay.
You've got to refresh blood every month. And the Chinese doctors will say, go eat some meat.
Yeah.
You know, this is compounded a little bit. We're going to get a little technical here. We'll just try and get through this. But women tend to have what we call a yin constitution, which has a tendency to hold water retention and moisture retention here.
Yeah.
If that occurs, particularly after birthing a child, because women can get a little bloated afterward and with water retention, and some young women just do as part of their genetics, this can dampen the spleen, right? And so the Chinese doctor would say, damn spleen, you need to go eat meat, you know, because the meat is loaded with carbohydrates and proteins that warm your middle jiao, they say, warm up your spleen, you know.
I feel that.
But what we looked at is that, well, since the Chinese never ate it in the past, then TCM is only taken on this view in the last, since Mao Zedong, you know. And so why not go back and look at what they did on the Wisleys for so long, you know?
Yeah.
Because they were successful, obviously, you know. So the spleen is the governor of your digestive metabolism. So not just the spleen, we call it spleen meridian. The splenic arteries of the spleen meridian include the spleen, pancreas, duodenum, small intestine, and stomach. This is like your body's oven right here. Yeah. And all those arteries go through it, where it picks up the nutritive chi when you eat something. We gather, sunlight's the original chi. A tomato is a storage unit of sunlight. We gather that in, and it is broken down and gathered into the blood via the splenic meridian and arteries. Well, that place needs to be nice and warm and dry. If it is not, if a woman has a cold spleen or else a damp spleen, holding water, or else she's cold all the time, then if she tries to not eat meat, she's maybe likely to experience energy deficits. It could even go over to sometimes some menstrual problems, you know, maybe even overbleeding sometimes. And so because we need to get upright chi in the blood. Well, that's this formula of mine called essentia. It's not just dong guai in there. It has an herb that's said to warm the middle jiao, warm up the spleen. It's called white atractylodes. And it has a cotinopsis, they call it ginseng for women. It's a nourishing form of and all this is what we say, it supports what we call upright chi, warm hands and feet, glowing skin, semi-firm stools, good energy, good weight management, easy menstrual cycles, all this stuff. this formula is designed to assist all of that. Plus, I threw a few herbs in there for beauty.
Nice. Yeah. I'm like, that all sounds good. Nice and warm, sensia, all upward movement of the chi, bright skin.
And to think that I'm so fortunate to have enough knowledge to have accomplished this gift for humanity. It's not me. I'm a good interpreter. Somebody else, some ancient Chinese people figured this out.
Yeah.
God bless them that they did, but I'm so fortunate to be a good interpreter of this.
No, it's super fun. I mean, you're great. Yeah. You're great, Rehmannia. Okay, so let me ask you this. We've talked a lot about women's health, and that's so important. Most of the audience that I have, at least, is women. Mm-hmm. But when we were at the Conscious Life Expo, I picked up a potency formula for men, and we touched a little bit in person on just sort of like health, vitality, and virility for men. Mm-hmm. We have a massive erectile dysfunction. Let me say that again. We have a massive ED. Epidemic in the West, particularly the United States. I can't speak for Europe, but it is the solution that is constantly pumped through the media is pharma. And we know that this is not, you and I know this is not an elegant solution, but I think that sort of what do they call that when it's sort of telling a story? I feel like by colloquial evidence as well, people aren't necessarily, it's like a Band-Aid. It kind of works, but it's not great, even from the sort of reports, citizen reports, the pharma ED solutions aren't great. So can we talk a little bit about men's health as well?
Yeah, thanks. It's really important. Men sort of do get overlooked. And I'll tell you, men are being hammered. Mm-hmm. Men are being slammed.
I know.
All of the xenoestrogenic molecules are nailing men.
Wow. Wait, xenoestrogens.
And all the pollution.
Okay.
And nobody's talking about
What are xenoestrogens?
It's a petrochemical molecule that has the same shape as estrogen.
Whoa.
It's in everything. It's in our water bottles and our exhaust.
Yeah.
And the health authorities know this, but the industry's so powerful,
Yeah. Well, we talked about this on another episode, which is just like, for decades, big tobacco knew that cigarettes killed, and they spent hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars on funding alternative research that said, where the science said cigarettes are fine. And so we're sort of in an interesting time where everybody's like, well, there's no science that says that this is bad. It's like, they know.
Now we're sitting on just a cluster F of like the problems that we're having to deal with,
Right, yeah. So these xenoestrogens are in your plastic, in the air. They're petrochemicals, and the men's hormonal and genetic system are getting slammed with these xenoestrogens.
Yeah, and women too.
And women too.
It's feminizing male species across the board. So frogs and stuff like that. They were noticing that in the early 1970s.
Right.
Well, there are ways to keep your yang, we call it.
Yeah.
Yang is the energy of the male. Yin is the energy of the female. Yin is intaking, holding, and nourishing. Men is outpouring and protecting.
Yeah.
That's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And it can be.
Yeah.
It definitely can be.
And I think there can be a balance too. Like, people are so, I feel like the media has done a great job of riling everybody up and getting people all freaked out, and everybody's angry about something. And I feel that, I feel in some ways we've come a long way for allowing organic bio-individual balance of the internal quote unquote gender spectrum, that to be a man does not mean, you have to be the quarterback. But if you are the quarterback, that's great. You're awesome. That's fantastic. Yeah. And if you're not the quarterback, there's still an internal, there's a proper balance of inner masculine and inner feminine for everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah. I believe in the peaceful warrior. Man,
Yeah.
And reishi does that. Reishi helps do that. Reishi helps create the peaceful warrior.
Cool.
So if you take reishi and you mix it with a formula of mine called Amarata, which is a formula for sexual potency for men and women, but the men all buy it. Some women do. That has all the herbs the ancient emperors all took, because those guys had thousands of concubines.
Right.
And so those emperors would say to their herbalists and alchemists would say, go up in the woods and find me some more of that stuff for some plants for my juice, and so they were always looking for this. The main ones they found were I work with vegetarian, what we call yang jing herbs. Jing is your kidneys and your life force, your foundation, your life potential. Mm-hmm. Yang means you're able to just go for it. Those guys when you're watching those guys play basketball, they're showing us how much jing they have because they're winning a game under stress.
Yeah. And
they don't wear down.
Right.
That's the key. We've got to be able to do that in this world. We've all got to be able to walk through the world and do this now. Yeah. These herbs, these yang jing herbs help us, women and men, particularly if you had a couple that wanted to propagate a family, great, take it together. Mm-hmm. I have another formula called Embrace that's for couples to share who want to start a family. Mm-hmm. But Amarante, the herb Sistanche is a famous herb for a vegetarian yang jing herb. I don't work with most of the sexual potency herbs in Chinese medicine are animal parts, and I don't work with them, like deer antler.
Got it.
And deer penis is used, and there's a type of gecko. And ants like these little red ants that have a lot of ATP. I don't do it. Ant is an amazing tonic, with all that ATP, but I don't do it. But so the two I work with are Sistanche and another called Epimedium, which is famous. Its famous folk name is a horny goat weed. Everybody knows that.
Right, everyone knows that.
It's actually an ancient herb that's been used forever.
Wow.
The way it got that name is similar to the way the Native Americans work, where there was a way back then, there were goat herders, and they noticed that every year, right before mating frenzy, their goats would all go to a certain tree and forage, and then go into a mating. Mm-hmm. They said, "That's a horny goat tree there," and that word got its name, horny goat weed.
Got it.
And so, but it's pharmaceutical name is Epimedium. Mm-hmm. Its Chinese name is Yin Yang Huo. But anyway, those you could take a formula and take a blood building tonic, like Roct is a good formula for men vegetarians. Mm-hmm. Essentia is a good one for female vegetarians. But they carry over. Mm-hmm. And mix Amarante with that to go down to the sexual, down to Jing. So there's three primary energies.
Yeah.
If you primarily tonify those three, we will be successful with total. You've got to eat right. You got to get some sunlight. You got to drink good water. You got to walk around. You got to that kind of stuff right.
You got to breathe. You got to open up your lungs.
Yeah, you got to. Yeah, I got to do some qigong, and then get some sun on your skin and in your eyes, right? Mm-hmm. And walk a mile a day at least. Yeah. And then eat pretty good. Eat a big wad of kraut before you go to bed.
Okay.
It alkalinizes your whole system, helps you sleep deeper.
Wow.
It promotes all the probiotic bacteria in your gut. But then the tonic herbs on top of that, they just go deeper. They're not really where our food is. Right. That's why food and herbs are classified differently. Herbs are food where you get the immediate carbohydrates for this.
Yeah.
Herbs are going down deeper to provide, deeper polysaccharide type stuff that burns slower and longer, and polyphenols and all these really long names, And if you're combining all that in a way that is, and then that's where you can start to work on being your own alchemist when you've got me working with you or somebody of my knowledge working with you, is to say, well, let's see, and then I do people's pulses or whatever, and I say, oh yeah, your yin jing, let's get something for your yin jing, and then let's get you something for your blood and qi. Yeah. And then if they've got stress and anxiety, we'll give you some shin herbs, right? And then we're going to be tonifying all three treasures with this person. Mm-hmm. And they're complementing each other, right?
Right.
Yeah. It becomes much simpler.
Yeah.
Way to literally to get your foundation shored up, get your daily energy needs met, and free your spirit.
Yeah. Well, and also one thing I've always loved about your brands is that there's a number on your packaging that if you want to talk to somebody, they can call this number, and that's sort of been consistent around through all of the iterations of your brands. And,
absolutely.
Because I would see them, when I would see them in the stores and I'd be like, oh my God, like you could just call them. And even for this interview,
that's my number too.
Yeah, I know. Well, even for this number, I was like, how am I going to get in touch with Rehmannia? And I went on your website like, oh, well, he put his number there. I'll just call him. So,
well, yeah,
you know,
I mean,
you could just call him. If you need to talk to him, you can call him.
Up until this point, I've been blessed with not being overwhelmed. I've been blessed with like kind of a divine, progression of friends and clients have come in. It hasn't overwhelmed me.
Yeah.
There could come a time at some point where I might have to change that whole approach. But at this point, I love to hear from you because it's really the only way to get something really done. It actually really annoys me when you want to call an old friend who's gotten famous. Yeah. And now it's like you get a message by a woman saying, better to leave a text, but if you need to talk with him, he'll get back. Someone will get back to you in 3 weeks,
Right, yeah.
Hey, my friend can answer the phone, I don't believe that it's like that,
Too big for you're not too big for anybody, yeah.
Maybe it's a show,
Right.
I don't believe in it.
Yeah.
I mean, right there, if you happen to call me and I happen to be there and pick up the phone, it's better because we're getting right to what you want. It's all done. Right. We're not having this lingering thing going on.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. There's a lot of, well, I mean, you're actually back in Kentucky,
yeah.
Kentucky, but you were in Los Angeles for so long, so you know so many people and have seen so many careers, start from the bottom, go up way to the top, and so and including yourself, amazing. I am so grateful for your time today and all of your knowledge and wisdom that you shared. I feel like what you have is just beyond, and anybody who gets to meet you, talk to you, or partake from any of your formulations is on the right path because they're just so great. And if you need to find Rehmannia, Super Tonic Herbs, email him, call him, supertonicherbs.com. And I'm not saying this just to plug Rehmannia. Buy something. Do it. I just think that's true because it's so good. You won't be upset. The Shilajit is like the best Shilajit in the world.
That is out of control.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another place I'm blessed. I just get approached by the people who have the very best. Yeah. And when I did a certificate of analysis on my Shilajit, 91% fulvic acids. If anybody out there knows what I'm talking about with fulvic acids, I'd searched all the products on the market. The highest I'd ever seen was 74, and I thought that was high. Yeah. When my COA came back, it's a certificate of laboratory analysis to show us how much this biomarker is. It's in Shilajit called fulvic acids. It was 91%, which means it's 91% the pure remains of an ancient rainforest. It could be 30 million years old. Wow. So Shilajit, there's nothing like it. I wrote a book on it too. Yeah. That I had at the Fed. I forgot to bring it with me now, but. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. So get the Shilajit book too. Yeah. In any case, thank you, Rehmannia. Can't wait to have you back, and can't wait for everything ahead.
For sure.